Do you remember when lunch was not a plastic-wrapped sandwich from a supermarket, but something your nan cooked from scratch on a chilly afternoon? When the kitchen smelled of gravy and the table was set with real butter, warm bread, and love? Here are 20 British lunches your nan used to make, but you can hardly find them anywhere now. The plowman's lunch was the definition of rustic simplicity. Crusty farmhouse bread, a generous wedge of cheddar, tangy pickles, and maybe a slice of ham or pork pie. It wasn't born from luxury but from practicality, often served cold in pubs or taken to the fields by labourers. In the 1950s and 1960s, it became a lunchtime staple as Britain rediscovered its love for traditional hearty fare after years of wartime austerity. Everything about it felt wholesome. Thick bread torn by hand, a sharp cheddar that could bite back, and the sweetness of Branston pickle cutting through the saltiness of the meat. Many still remember washing it down with a pint of bitter, sitting in a smoky pub with a wooden table worn smooth from years of elbows and laughter. Today, you rarely see a true ploughman's on menus. Modern versions come deconstructed or minimalist, but the original was honest and filling, a meal that said you'd worked hard, earned your bread, and deserved every bite. For many growing up in post-war Britain, spam fritters were not just lunch, they were survival. Made from thick slices of canned spam, dipped in batter and fried until golden, this dish carried the memory of ration books and frugality. In the 1950s and the 1960s, families still made use of wartime ingredients, stretching every penny as far as possible. Spam had come from America during the war, and though it was not glamorous, it was dependable. Nans across the country would serve fritters with chips and peas, or tucked into a sandwich with a dollop of brown sauce. The taste was oddly comforting, salty, crispy, and hot enough to burn your tongue if you were not patient. It was a dish that reminded people that good food did not need to be expensive. Today, spam fritters have mostly disappeared from kitchen tables, surviving only in nostalgic memories or the occasional chip shop throwback. Yet for many, just hearing the words brings back the smell of hot oil and the sound of crackling batter. Corned beef hash was the go-to lunch when cupboards were nearly bare, but bellies needed filling. It was a meal of economy and creativity. Tinned corned beef mixed with onions, mashed potatoes, and whatever vegetables were left from the night before. Fried in a pan until crispy on the edges, it was both humble and hearty. Every family had their own twist. Some added Worcestershire sauce, others a fried egg on top. Your nan probably made it when she wanted something quick, hot, and satisfying after a morning of chores. The smell of frying onions and beef would fill the house, and soon the table would be set with steaming plates, a bottle of HP sauce, and mugs of tea. It wasn't fancy food, but it was real food, made with care. Nowadays, few bother to make it from scratch, yet it remains one of those forgotten classics that perfectly captures the taste of post-war Britain. Resourceful, warm, and deeply comforting. Nothing says childhood like a fish finger butty. Thick white bread, real butter, and a line of crispy fish fingers. Straight from the oven, sometimes with ketchup, sometimes with brown sauce, sometimes with both. In the 1960s and the 1970s, fish fingers were the ultimate convenience food, a modern marvel for busy mums and hungry kids. After school, nans and mums alike would whip them up in minutes, often with a side of chips or baked beans. The crunch of the fish fingers against the softness of the bread was perfection. Some families added lettuce or a squeeze of lemon, but most kept it simple. It was a no-fuss lunch that everyone loved, eaten at the table or straight from the plate in front of the telly. Today, the fish finger butty is more of a guilty pleasure than a daily meal, but for anyone who grew up in mid-century Britain, it remains a symbol of simpler times, warm, golden, and unmistakably British. Few combinations define Britain better than cheese and pickle. Thick slices of mature cheddar pressed between two pieces of white or brown bread, with a generous spread of Branston pickle in between. Sweet, tangy. It could be a little messy. It was one of the most common lunches in the 1950s through the 1970s, found in school lunchboxes, factory canteens, and pub counters alike. Your nan probably made it with bread from the local baker and cheese sliced straight from the block. No plastic wrap or pre-grated nonsense. It was quick, cheap, and full of flavor. The perfect working-class lunch. Every bite had that satisfying crunch of pickle chunks and the creamy sharpness of cheddar. People did not need fancy ingredients or exotic flavors back then. Just something honest that filled you up and made you smile. Today, it has been replaced by meal deals and supermarket sandwiches, but no pre-packaged version ever comes close to what your nan used to make with her own hands. Egg and cress sandwiches were the epitome of post-war British simplicity. Hard-boiled eggs mashed with a touch of mayonnaise or salad cream, seasoned with salt and pepper, and topped with a handful of freshly cut cress, all pressed between two slices of soft white bread. It was delicate. Egg and cress sandwiches were simple but satisfying, often served at picnics, church gatherings, or as a light lunch with a pot of tea. In the 1950s and 1960s, cress was grown on kitchen windowsills, a little patch of green life even in the greyest towns. Your nan probably sprinkled it on top with pride, knowing she had grown it herself. The sandwich had a freshness that stood out among heavier meals. Simple, creamy, and faintly peppery. It was not just food, it was comfort, a reminder of gentler times when a sandwich could still feel special. Nowadays, you will rarely find it outside of old-fashioned cafes or afternoon teas, but for those who remember, it still carries the taste of home. Before sushi and fancy seafood platters, there was the tinned salmon sandwich. It was a post-war treat. Pink, flaky salmon from a tin, mashed with a bit of vinegar, pepper, and sometimes a touch of mayonnaise or butter. Served between soft white bread with the crusts cut off, it was a lunch that felt elegant but affordable. In the 1950s and 1960s, tinned fish was a luxury compared to the humble sardine, and your nan would bring out her best china plates when she made it. Sometimes she would add cucumber slices or a sprinkle of parsley, giving it a touch of Sunday refinement. These sandwiches were a staple at picnics and tea parties, but also made their way into everyday lunches. The salty tang and soft texture were unmistakable, and the faint metallic aroma of the tin is a memory many still recall. Today, tinned salmon has lost its charm, overshadowed by fresh fillets and endless options. But back then, it was a small taste of something special. Your nan probably kept a few tins in the cupboard for those days when time or money was short. The smell was strong, but to those who grew up with it, it was pure comfort. Sardines on toast were quick, warm, and full of character. A meal that could be made in minutes and still taste like proper food. Usually served with tinned sardines in tomato sauce or oil, mashed lightly and spread over hot buttered toast, it was an instant classic of the 1950s and the 1960s. Some added a squeeze of lemon, others a sprinkle of salt, and a few brave souls used vinegar. It was the kind of lunch you could eat while reading the newspaper or listening to the radio. In seaside towns, sardines were a nod to Britain's fishing routes. Affordable, nutritious, and homely. Today you might only find them in vintage recipe books, but one bite would bring back the taste of post-war resilience and the warmth of a simpler kitchen. Few smells were as distinctive as Kippers frying in the pan. Smoked herring, rich in flavor and oil, served with a slice of buttered bread to soak it all up. This was a common sight in seaside homes and cafes through the 1950s and the 1960s. It was strong, hearty fare that filled the kitchen with its unmistakable aroma. For many, kippers were a taste of the coast, often enjoyed after a chilly walk by the sea. Your nan might have served them for lunch or a light supper, always with plenty of tea and maybe a splash of vinegar. In those days, fishmongers sold them by the pair, wrapped in paper, and you could smell them halfway down the street. Today they're seen as old-fashioned, too messy or smelly for modern kitchens. But they once represented a nation that respected honest food, smoked, simple, and full of life. Every bite tasted of salt air, hard work, and home. Deviled kidneys were once a proud British lunch, fiery, rich, and full of flavor. Small lamb kidneys sautéed in butter, then cooked in a tangy mixture of mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and a dash of cayenne pepper, served on thick buttered toast. It was bold and unmistakable, a dish your granddad might have called real food. In the 1950s and 1960s, offal wasn't just for the poor. It was an affordable source of protein and a symbol of thrift. Every part of the animal was used, and nans took pride in cooking it well. The dish filled the air with a savory, spicy aroma that clung to your clothes for hours. Though not everyone loved it, those who did swore by it. Today, deviled kidneys have nearly vanished, replaced by blander, safer options. But for those who remember, it was a meal that embodied old British courage. No waste, no fear, just strong flavors and hearty tradition on a plate. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, tongue sandwiches were a lunchtime delicacy that spoke of thrift, skill, and tradition. The tongue, usually from beef, was slow-boiled for hours until tender, then thinly sliced and served cold between buttered bread. A smear of English mustard or a spoon of pickle gave it that sharp kick every Brit loved. It was not fancy, but it was honest food, the kind your nan made when she wanted to use every bit of the Sunday roast. In those days, wasting meat was not an option. People respected the animal and the effort it took to put food on the table. Many still remember opening their packed lunches to find a tongue sandwich wrapped in wax paper, its savory aroma filling the schoolroom. Today it might sound odd, or even off-putting, but back then it was a sign of care and resourcefulness. Each bite was tender, rich, and subtly spiced, the kind of flavor that modern convenience foods cannot replicate. It is a forgotten treasure from a time when sandwiches were not just quick snacks, but little expressions of love and effort. Before fancy spreads and deli meats filled supermarket shelves, shippums were common in Britain. Tiny jars of potted meat or fish paste that seemed to last forever. Your nan likely had a few tucked away in her cupboard, ready to spread on thick slices of mother's pride white bread for a quick lunch. The texture was smooth, salty, and rich. Whether it was chicken, beef, or salmon, it always packed a punch. In the 1960s, these sandwiches were a staple for kids' lunchboxes, picnics, and even factory breaks. They were cheap, convenient, and surprisingly satisfying. The sound of a spoon scraping the bottom of a shippum's jar still brings back memories for many, followed by the smell of that unmistakable savory spread. Served with a cup of tea and maybe a packet of crisps, it was pure working-class Britain on a plate. Today, potted paste has almost vanished, replaced by sleek packaging and imported flavors. But back then, it was as British as the red telephone box, simple, salty, and dependable. Few things summed up a British pub lunch like a thick slice of pork pie with a spoonful of Branston pickle on the side. The ham salad plate was a lunch that brought color and freshness to post-war Britain. It wasn't just ham on a plate, it was an arrangement of sliced boiled ham, iceberg lettuce, tomato wedges, pickled beetroot, sliced cucumber, and maybe a boiled egg, all neatly presented with a side of buttered bread. Your nan probably served it on her best china with a small dollop of salad cream, the British alternative to fancy dressing. It was light, yet filling, refreshing, yet familiar. In the 1950s and the 1960s, it was the go-to meal for hot summer afternoons, garden lunches, or quick family gatherings. It represented a time when food was simple but made with care, when a meal didn't need to be cooked for hours to feel special. Each bite was a mix of sweet beetroot, salty ham, and creamy salad cream. Humble, yes, but wholesome and satisfying. Today you'd struggle to find it outside an old-fashioned tea room, but for those who remember, it was a plate full of British sunshine and effort. The cheese and onion doorstop sandwich was not for the faint-hearted. Thick slabs of bread, sometimes an inch or more, packed with sharp cheddar and raw onion rings that bit back with every chew. It was bold, unapologetic, and entirely British. Your nan probably made it when she wanted something quick but hearty, served with a cup of tea and maybe a few crisps on the side. The onions made your eyes water as she sliced them, and the smell lingered long after lunch. But no one complained. It was the taste of real food. Simple, strong, and honest. This was the sandwich of builders, farmers, and factory workers, people who needed energy to get through the day. It was called a doorstop for a reason. It was so thick you could practically use it as one. These days, it has been replaced by neatly cut cafe sandwiches. But nothing matches the raw power of that classic combination of cheddar, onion, and thick bread, made by hand in a warm kitchen that smelled faintly of butter and hard work. If your nan had a jar of Branston pickle in the pantry, she would reach for it to lift the flavors. Chances are she made these. Beetroot and cheese sandwiches were a colorful lunchtime staple of the 1960s and the 1970s. Simple, cheap, and oddly delicious. The sharpness of mature cheddar met the earthy sweetness of pickled beetroot, and the result was a perfect balance of flavors. The bright purple beetroot would stain everything it touched, the bread, the plate, even your fingers. But that was part of its charm. Many families ate it with soft white bread, a spread of butter, and maybe a pinch of salt and pepper. It was messy, yes, but full of personality. It captured the creativity of a generation that learned to make something wonderful out of very little. You won't see it on many menus today, but those who grew up with it remember it fondly. The crunch of beetroot, the creaminess of cheese, and the satisfaction of a sandwich made with care, not convenience. Every Brit who grew up in the 1950s or the 1960s remembers mince and mash, the school dinner classic that filled you up and warmed you through. Hot pot was the pride of northern kitchens, and one of the heartiest lunches Britain ever produced. Layers of lamb or mutton, onions and sliced potatoes baked slowly in the oven until everything merged into one rich, bubbling dish. Sometimes a few carrots or a splash of stock were added, but simplicity was key. The top layer of potatoes would turn golden and crisp, while underneath everything was tender and steeped in flavor. Served in schools, cafes, and homes across the country, it was the perfect balance of warmth and nutrition. Your nan might have made it in a heavy enamel dish, pulling it out of the oven to rest on a tea towel before serving it with pickled red cabbage. In working-class households, hot pot was a way to make a small amount of meat go far, and everyone loved it. The smell filled the house for hours, promising comfort long before it was ready. Today, it's rare to find the real thing, the slow-cooked homemade version, but it remains one of the most nostalgic meals of Britain's culinary past. Friday lunch in mid-century Britain meant one thing: fish. For many, it was tradition, and for some, it was religious. Whether it was a plate of battered fish and chips from the local shop, or poached whitefish served in creamy parsley sauce, It was a meal that marked the end of the week. The smell of vinegar and fried batter drifted down streets every Friday afternoon. In homes, your nan might have served flaky cod or haddock with mashed potatoes and peas, all drenched in parsley sauce that she whisked together from scratch. For kids, it was often a highlight of the week, the promise of something warm, golden, and delicious after school. Fish Friday wasn't just about the food, it was about routine, comfort, and community. Today we might grab sushi or grilled salmon, but back then, a simple piece of battered cod wrapped in newspaper was pure joy. Crispy outside, soft inside, and served with love. Few lunches bring back more memories than tomato soup with buttered bread. Whether it was Heinz or Campbell's, the smell alone could brighten a grey afternoon. Your nan would heat it slowly on the stove, never in a hurry, and serve it in deep bowls with thick slices of bread, generously spread with butter for dunking. It was cheap, warm, and perfect for rainy days when you'd just come home from school with cold hands and rosy cheeks. The soup's sweet tang and the melted butter mixing into it made every bite feel like home. Some added a sprinkle of pepper, others a splash of milk. Everyone had their own twist. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. Tomato soup was a hug in a bowl, and the buttered bread made it complete. Today it's still around, but the ritual, the care, the simplicity, the warmth is what's missing. Back then it wasn't just lunch. It was love, served steaming hot. Which one of these classics was your favorite? Tell us in the comments, and let's see which lunch truly ruled Britain's golden years. If you love a trip down memory lane, make sure to subscribe. There's plenty more. Hot pot was the pride of northern kitchens and one of the heartiest lunches Britain ever produced. Layers of lamb or mutton, onions and sliced potatoes were baked slowly in the oven until everything merged into one rich, bubbling dish. Sometimes a few carrots or a splash of stock were added, but simplicity was key. The top layer of potatoes turned golden and crisp, while underneath everything was tender and steeped in flavor. Served in schools, cafes, and homes across the country, it was the perfect balance of warmth and nutrition. Your nan might have made it in a heavy enamel dish, pulling it out of the oven to rest on a tea towel before serving it with pickled red cabbage. In working-class households, hot pot was a way to make a small amount of meat go far, and everyone loved it. The smell filled the house for hours, promising comfort long before it was ready. Today it is rare to find the real thing, the slow-cooked, homemade version, but it remains one of the most nostalgic meals of Britain's culinary past. Fish Friday. Friday lunch in mid-century Britain meant one thing: fish. For many it was tradition, and for some it was religious. Whether it was a plate of battered fish and chips from the local shop, or poached white fish served in creamy parsley sauce. It was a meal that marked the end of the week. The smell of vinegar and fried batter drifted down streets every Friday afternoon. In homes, your nan might have served flaky cod or haddock with mashed potatoes and peas, all drenched in parsley sauce that she whisked together from scratch. For kids, it was often a highlight of the week, the promise of something warm, golden, and delicious after school. Fish Friday wasn't just about the food. It was about routine, comfort, and community. Today we might grab sushi or grilled salmon, but back then, a simple piece of battered cod wrapped in newspaper was pure joy, crispy outside, soft inside, and served with love. Few lunches bring back more memories than tomato soup with buttered bread. Whether it was Heinz or Campbell's, the smell. Tomato soup alone could brighten a grey afternoon. Your nan would heat it slowly on the stove, never in a hurry, and serve it in deep bowls with thick slices of bread generously spread with butter for dunking. It was cheap, warm, and perfect for rainy days when you'd just come home from school with cold hands and rosy cheeks. The soup's sweet tang and the melted butter mixing into it made every bite feel like home. Some added a sprinkle of pepper, others a splash of milk. Everyone had their own twist. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. Tomato soup was a hug in a bowl, and the buttered bread made it complete. Today it's still around, but the ritual, the care, the simplicity, the warmth is what's missing. Back then it wasn't just lunch, it was love served steaming hot. Which one of these classics was your favorite? Tell us in the comments, and let's see which lunch truly ruled Britain's golden years. If you love a trip down memory lane, make sure to subscribe. There's plenty more nostalgia where this came from.